Well, take our seats. Okay. 6:30, so we will begin. Mr. Harris, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Miss Byrd. Miss Cook.
Present.
Mr. Dastra.
Here.
Miss Elias. Mr. Feldman.
Here.
Mr. McGrann.
Here.
Miss Rufo.
Here.
And Chairman Adams.
Here. Do we have a quorum?
We do.
Having a quorum, the Home Rule Study Commission is now in session. First order of business, approval of the minutes from the August 1st meeting. You all received a copy of them. I will say there is one correction that I was caught on. There is a vote where it says Barber and Adams voted no. It was actually McGrann and Adams voted no. So I have made that change. Are there any other corrections or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, is there any objection to approval of the minutes as corrected? Hearing no objection, minutes are approved. Thank you. Report from the chair. I have nothing at this point to report. So moving on to public comments. If any member of the public would like to speak, we have a part in the beginning and at the end where you may do so. I just ask that you come up to the lectern. Make sure it's on. I think it's a green light on the microphone. Give your name and the street on which you live, and if you would, limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
John Gavea, 100 block of East Orange Street. I'm here to comment on concerns that were raised with respect to City Council pay and benefits. First, consider the role of City Council. Council members are not part-time employees as people are normally thought of in that case. They're more like a board of directors for a for-profit organization. Consider this. The mayor and staff propose ordinances. Council discusses, evaluates, and may or may not make changes before they become laws. The mayor and staff also prepare a balanced budget. The council, after conducting public hearings, passes it. In short, the council provides oversight and responsibility. With this in mind, I offer some historical background. In 1993, I ran for city controller, and at that time, council members were being paid $8,000 a year plus benefits. That means the council has not received a pay raise in over 30 years. How many employers can say the same thing? The cost of benefits, particularly medical benefits, has increased substantially during that time, and this is the crux of the financial issue. I think the commissioners have properly addressed this concern. Currently, city council members have the option of accepting the medical coverage from the city or declining. But if they decline it, they get a cash payment equivalent to about $21,000, give or take. In paragraph 213, compensation, paragraph D of the report, the commissioners have deleted the cash payment option. Council members may accept the medical coverage or decline it. They do not receive compensation for declining it. This savings more than offsets the additional salary since most council members have medical coverage available through their employers. We should continue to offer the medical coverage as there are at least 2 classes of people to whom this may be a benefit. As one who spent some time a few years back trying to recruit highly qualified candidates for council, I think any benefit cannot be overlooked. The 2 classes I speak of are entrepreneurs and people in the so-called gig economy. They each would bring a valuable perspective to council, and this may be the hook that gets them in. Bottom line, we are already providing medical coverage plus $21,000 plus or minus payment if declined, and in future, the removal of that $21,000 payment more than offsets the cost of the pay raise. Yes, this is a 50% increase in 1 year. It also represents a 50% increase over what was paid 30 years ago. On balance, I think this is a reasonable proposal, and of course, I encourage you to vote yes on the report.
Thank you, Mr. Gavea. Other members would like to speak?
Go ahead, Mom. I will be brief. Thank you. Good evening, members of the Home Rule Study Commission. My name is Amanda Bakay, 400 block of High Street. I want to thank you for undertaking this work. When we, the members of council, put forth to the voters to decide if we should form this commission, each of you stepped up to commit your time to learn and ultimately write a new charter for the city of Lancaster. I am thankful for all that you have done to get here today. During this 18-month process, as a member of City Council, I have answered your questions, but otherwise largely stepped back from this process. Now, as this process concludes, I'm here to provide some comment on the charter as it stands today. The new charter proposed includes the important and necessary ability for the legislative body to set rates for earned income taxes. It also includes protections for residents against unnecessary tax increases, protections that don't exist today, and I applaud the members of this commission for striking that balance. The new charter as proposed also includes the creation of an ethics commission, and also makes it easier for citizens to create referendums and includes more oversight on the budget process than is in place today. Updates like these are exactly what is needed for an even more sound government. There are a few items in the charter as proposed that I believe should be re-examined. First, the addition of 2 additional city council members. As the current president of Lancaster City Council, I believe that 7 members is the right size legislative body for this city. It also aligns with the number of standing committees of council that are needed to write and advance legislation. Additionally, I don't believe that this charter should change compensation for city council members. The city council has the opportunity to propose legislation to increase council salaries. Yet this has not been requested by any member of council in quite a long time, as Mr. Covea just noted. Finally, in the spirit of cost savings and making changes that are both fiscally responsible and right for the future of our city government, I believe that council members who serve on a part-time basis should not be eligible for health insurance benefits. After reviewing the city finances for the last 18 months, I don't believe either of these items should be included in this charter. Again, to the esteemed members of this commission, I thank you for your work. I know that it's not easy. I know that public meetings and community engagement can be draining and keeping you away from your families and other commitments for such a long time. I'm deeply appreciated to you and your commitment to the city of Lancaster. We need engaged residents like yourselves, no matter what the final words of the charter will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bakay. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Mimi Shapiro. I live in the 200 block of Concord Street. There was a letter in today's paper by Tom Hassler. I don't see him in the audience. I wonder if I can read it. Is that allowed?
Yeah, you can read it.
Okay, I'll read fast. Regarding home rule, consider the whole city. The impetus behind considering a home rule charter for Lancaster City is to enhance the financial viability of the city through increased revenue flexibility. I find it unfortunate that some people are campaigning for the charter's defeat before the Home Rule Study Commission has even published its final report. Yes, increased taxes are in the mix, but voters should make their decision for or against the charter based on the financial impact on the whole city and its citizens, not district policies and power relationships. Anyone running for elective office in the city should have to make their case to the whole city electorate, not just their selected district or potential supporters. You do not need a party endorsement to win a citywide race, as City Council member Janet Diaz has shown. The right candidate and the right set of circumstances make it possible to win a city election, even as a Republican. What we need in Lancaster City is a continuation of competent leadership at all levels, because the state has made being a financially successful third-class city very challenging. Thomas Hassler, Lancaster City. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shapiro. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm David Muldoon of the Southwest 600 block of Vine Street. I'd like to thank the Commission for the work on the charter and their time listening to our comments and questions this evening, as we are all concerned with just how important this document that will serve as our local constitution will be. We must reflect carefully on each change, for even the smallest error can cost our most vulnerable and the programs that protect the millions that would otherwise be unnecessarily spent. First of all, as someone on a fixed income, I'm glad to hear that the city is looking into more routes to fiscal stability than just property tax, which would be harder for those on retirement, disability, or other fixed or limited incomes. Now let's get to the critical part of why I stand here before you today and address the elephant in the room. The Commission has taken its focus off the goal of improving the fiscal stability of the city of Lancaster. If you look at the numbers that the changes to the council you are proposing, increasing the salaries by 50%, adding 2 additional counselors plus offering benefits will directly add over $1 million to the budget in a 10-year period. Don't you think that $1 million could be better spent hiring social workers, paramedics, police officers, or other city workers who can make social services and other city services run more smoothly for those who need it and spend on solutions, not more politicians? 54 of 56 cities in Pennsylvania have councils made up of 5 or 7 people. The exceptions to this are Pittsburgh with a population of 303,000 and Philadelphia with a population of 1.6 million. What makes Lancaster, a town with a population of 58,000, so different that it needs a council that is larger than its peers? What makes our situation that the levels of complexity to need such a large council that its costs would come to that level? That's $1 million that won't repave potholes in our roads. That's $1 million that won't protect our homes. That's $1 million not taking care of our parks and playgrounds. That's $1 million not funding our social services and the workers that run them. I would like to thank the Commission for their time on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muldoon. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Alexander King. I live in the 600 block of North Shippen Street. And I would like to begin by thanking you all for your service. This has been a huge effort, and I applaud you for that. I have read through the charter, and I like a lot of the provisions in it, particularly the earned income tax. As has been already mentioned, I think it's an excellent way to protect our most vulnerable citizens, particularly low-income renters, where property taxes are passed lead to rising rents, and those on fixed incomes. I also like the initiative process, particularly the number of signatures is a sufficiently high bar to prevent frivolous initiatives from going before the public. I would like to caution, however, having grown up in Washington State where initiatives and referendums were long ensconced, people there are using paid signature gatherers to push their own private agendas. And, you know, we may be confronted with that in the future where 1 or 2 very wealthy individuals could regularly be putting initiatives on the ballot. And so I would like you to consider disallowing paid signature gatherers for initiatives. I also want to echo some of the other comments that I believe 9 council members is too large. We are not Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, where less than 60,000 people, 7 councilors elected at large is plenty. I'd also like to echo some of the other comments that medical insurance is an extravagant expense for this city to give to council members. There is the exchange. Obamacare is not dead. I used that for a time when I was between, my family were between jobs. And there's CHIPS, you know, for children's health insurance. There are other options than the city giving health insurance to someone who is working only part-time. Also, I also agree that $12,000 is too high of an increase. Now, yes, it has been a long, long time before there's been an increase, but you need to consider the electability and the optics of getting this passed by the people who live in the city. And what they're going to see is you're raising my taxes and you're giving all that money to the counselors, your buddies, or you're going to be running for it yourself. I'm not talking about what's really going on. I'm talking about what people have already made comments to me about, as I've suggested that this is a good thing. That's the first complaint. So I would suggest either not having a raise or perhaps a modest raise to $9,000 per year, showing that yes, a raise is necessary, it is time, but not an extravagant one that managing the resources. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Next speaker.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Stilwell. I live on the 500 block of West Orange Street. Brief comments. First, I'm just thank you all so much for doing this work. Thoughtful, informed, intentional, and transparent. Also want to give a shout out to the Home Rule website, which I think is beautifully designed, easy to navigate, and I'm just very much appreciative that I have easy access to all the materials. So thank you for that as well. Looking at the draft of the charter, very happy to see that there is greater opportunity for citizen engagement in various processes, including the petitions and referenda potential. Glad to see you plan for an ethics board and that people who would be brought forward to be selected to serve on that board will be publicly announced. So in case any of us have anything to say about any of those folks, we can step forward and make our comments and concerns known. And also appreciate having a more engaged and transparent budgeting process. I have not been involved in the budgeting process, haven't gone to the meetings, but maybe if there are more meetings, I could try to go to them. So what is concerning to me, and I hope I don't sound like a broken record this evening, but is expanding council to 9 people. It just seems excessive for a city our size. I won't quote all the numbers that other people have already stated. Also concerned about increasing the salary and the benefits at this particular moment, especially increasing the salary, the amount that is currently noted in the plan for the charter. Agreed with earlier commenters that it just seems like it's too much for now for a city that's trying to fix its financial situation. Agreed also with John Gouveia that it's been way too long for city council to not get a raise. But also appreciate Amanda Bakay's commentary that they do have the option to increase the salary, and that hasn't happened for decades. So maybe having it fixed at the current rate or maybe increase just a little bit would be okay, but not the dramatic increase from $8,000 to $12,000 a year. And about benefits, we just can't afford it. As much as I've come to understand the city budget and what we pay for city services and pensions and whatnot, with the aside that I do appreciate that offering health insurance could be a great boon benefit to folks. Thankfully, we live in a country, and God, I hope this continues, that we have options for health insurance now. It isn't just strictly employer-based. I'll stop there. I'll just say thanks again for listening to all of us throughout this process and for all of your work.
Thank you, Ms. Stilwell. Any other speakers? Yes.
Good evening. Paula Jackson, 000 block of South Mary Street. At the public hearing, I mentioned I feel there's a need to keep the city engineer position in the charter as we have now, because the infrastructure of the city is a matter of public health, safety, and welfare. There's no guarantee that there would always be someone with engineering credentials in the city staff. I don't believe we've had people in different positions in public works that have importance, but they don't have a PE or they're not licensed as such. So because so much of the city depends, water, sewer, streets, lights, traffic, so much of the city and the welfare of the city is related to engineering considerations. And I do believe, having worked in city planning and worked with past city engineers for a couple decades, it was so important to have that position in-house. So I just wanted to reiterate, but I did have one question which I didn't ask at the last meeting. The age of qualification for a mayor, and I believe city council remains at 18. in the charter, from what I read online. But to be eligible for the controller, someone must be 21. And I didn't see any requirement that it be a certified public accountant. So I question, why there was no consideration to raising the age for the mayor and city council also to 21. A couple of years could mean a difference in maturity. I mean, maybe they've gone through college or they had a work experience, but 18 could be someone right out of high school. So I just wondered, if there had been consideration of, being consistent. The controller doesn't, have to have a particular CPA. Why not make all these important positions, 21 years of age as a qualification? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Any other speakers?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jamie Arroyo. I have the pleasure of serving as the Vice President of City Council, and I reside on the 800 block of North Lime Street. First, I want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to all the Commissioners for your dedication throughout this process. Drafting a home charter is no small feat, and if approved, it has the potential to position our city for a stronger future. I especially appreciate the efforts made to engage our community and ensure that diverse perspectives were heard and considered in drafting this charter. I'm sure this process has been challenging. I'd like to share a few thoughts on some key aspects of home rule that I believe should be carefully considered or reconsidered. Regarding the proposal to increase the number of counselors to 9, I believe that more does not necessarily mean better. In my conversations with residents, most supported the home rule process because it promises greater flexibility in improving our financial outlook. Adding additional costs with minimal return goes against what the residents of our city are asking for. With 9 counselors, we would be one of 3 cities in the entire state that has more than 7 council members. Pittsburgh has 9 and Philadelphia has 17. In that same vein, I support eliminating benefits for counselors. For the betterment of our future, sacrifices need to be made, including those of us who serve on city council. This charter has the potential to significantly enhance our city government and how we serve our residents. From adding a tax revenue increase limit to requiring an annual capital plan, this is our opportunity to lay the foundation for governing our city for the next 50 years or more, ensuring that our children are not burdened, but are instead building on strength and have the opportunity to thrive here in Lancaster City. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Mr. Arroyo. Any other speakers?
Good evening. My name is Sean Gollatz. I've read reporting stating that the reason a home rule charter is needed is to eliminate the maximum tax caps on municipal income tax and real estate taxes set by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I just want to know if this is true, and if not, what language in the charter can you point to that keeps these tax caps in place? If the language is not explicit, why should we, the people, vote ourselves a tax increase? So far, I've heard of a tax increase for residents and a pay raise for politicians. Why should City Council and the current mayor pass the consequences of reckless spending to residents? Thank you for your time.
Could you have your street, did you give your street address? Or just the street on which you live?
So as a reminder, Lancaster City Ordinance 2024-01 prevents any city employee from asking residents about their resident status.
Okay. Any other speakers?
John Hirsch of the 100 block of East Ross Street. I've had the honor of serving on Lancaster City Council for the last 6 months. I'm pretty new compared to some of the others. But I wanted to come here and give my commentary, and first off say thank you for all the work that all of you have done on this commission. If I wasn't sitting in this room, I was watching at home, and just the questions and the situations that you all have had to work through and kind of talk through is a lot of work. So I'm very grateful for all all of the work that you all have put in. I think the charter is incredibly important. As someone that works in the financial world, as an accountant, as a former certified public accountant, this charter is vital to the city's fiscal future. And I think any good financial advisor would tell you it's a good idea, if you can, to diversify your revenue streams. And I think that's what's going to help the city, because if you've seen in the last 4 years, between COVID-19, between inflation, and I'll just bring something specific to myself as the Public Works Committee Chair, there are numerous federal mandates that are coming down the line that will probably result in water becoming even more expensive to deliver water to city residents. And so with all of that in mind, I think it's really important that we pass this charter to give the city flexibility over the sources of revenue that it pulls in, because we don't know what the future holds, quite frankly. And that said, given the importance of this charter, I've come here to share and express the same sentiments that my colleagues on council have presented. It's my opinion that city council pay should be kept at $8,000 as it currently stands, or not be changed. And quite frankly, I think that a system in which council sets our own pay is good, because quite frankly, if we are to raise our pay, then we have to answer to the taxpayers for that. And I'd rather that be the case than, it be inundated or instated in the charter, particularly when the whole purpose of the charter is to make the city more fiscally sustainable in the long run. And I will also echo the comments that I believe 2 additional counselors would not be wise at this point, again, given the fiscal constraints that the city is under. And I also don't believe it would be wise to continue providing benefits to city councilors, including health insurance, because the city is, again, in a situation where we need to change the equation under which we raise revenue and expend. And I don't think that raising council pay, I don't think that providing benefits to council, increasing the number of city councilors, I think those are directly contradictory to those goals, as you've heard from numerous residents here tonight. So just in conclusion, I just want to say I don't serve in this role for the money. For the money that the additional, money that I earn from being on city council, it's not worth the time away from my stepson. It's not worth the time from all the other things that I could be doing. I do it because I love the city. I do it because I love Lancaster. I do it because I care about the city's future. And I'm here. I'm here to hear you. I'm here to answer questions. I've said this a couple times, and I'll say it again. I'll get coffee with anybody in this city. I'm here to hear out your concerns. And I've wanted to keep my distance out of respect for the work of the commission. But here, we're at the end, and I wanted to share my thoughts on the charter as it stands. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hirsch. Any other speakers?
My name's Gary Hopkins. I live at 201 North Duke. And to me, this whole thing is just a way to, one more tax on my income. And that's not a great thing. I know the city needs money, but, how much is too much? That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Anyone, any other speakers? All right, thank you all for comments this evening. Next item on the agenda, we held the public hearing last week. If there is any discussion on the public hearing before we entertain motions on the charter, this is this is where we would have it. Is there any comments any of the commission would like to make or discussions?
I would like to discuss Paula Jackson's comment that the city engineer position should be remaining in the charter. We should have a city engineer. I do agree with her that we're relying on too many utilities and operate too many utilities for there to not be a guarantee that somebody with that expertise is on city staff, because it makes us potentially dependent on consultants to advise us, and we don't necessarily know that the interests are always you're paying a consultant, there's no guarantee that it's going to be the greatest advice. I think when you have internal staff who can translate information, translate lingo, it's better advice to council and the administration. So I think that the charter should include a city engineer.
Mr. Falvey.
Commissioner Cook? Okay. I just wanted to bring up what the commissioner just addressed. I was initially one of the people who felt that that section of the charter was not needed, and I want to make clear when I said that and I suggested it, it was not because I felt like we should have some external entity performing the function. It's because the language in the charter is rather perfunctory, and it's a designation of a title. It's not an objection to the fact that the city should and will continue to have people to perform that function. That said, I have no principled opposition to putting it back. I just want to be clear, its removal is not for the intent and express purpose of quote-unquote outsourcing. It's just that I'm not really sure why we need to designate a city engineer in the constitution of the city. That's all.
I want to say I appreciate City Council President Bakay coming up. One of the things that I had hoped would be part of this commission study was that we would hear from the people. I wasn't here to represent anyone in particular or any one particular area of the city, but to hear City Council Member Bakay to say that they never requested an increase. That's some of the feedback that is helpful. From the beginning, kind of the beginning of our deliberations, I had asked that our system was that we were, as guided by PEL, we would go around the room, talk about a particular article, and say yes or no if we wanted to keep the particular article or change it. I suggested that. This is not to say anything to my advantage, but I suggested that we not do it that way, because when people would say no or yes, they were also asked to give a reason why they were saying yes or no. And not knowing everyone's opinion of what should occur, what they want, what they don't want, as far as the city of Lancaster, when it would come to a point that someone would be asked the question and they say no for a particular article and give the answer why, and then everyone go around and then give their answer, I found that there were things I had not considered. So there were several things that I changed my mind about based on what the varied opinions of fellow commissioners had to say, but also based on some of the input we were getting starting in January when we were beginning to write a home rule charter. So I'm taking into consideration that particular comment from City Council Member President Bakay to say they didn't request a raise, and although they had not received one, it did seem important to give them a raise, but considering the optics, as someone has mentioned, and the budget overall not being in a good place, and all that goes into that, why we're not in a good place. I think that to maintain the salary, and the other point being that city council members have the ability to make a request for an increase we don't have to make that decision for them. That's one thing. We were led to believe that city council members in declining health insurance receive a $20,000 gift, basically. I'll call it, you could call it what you'd like. And I really was flabbergasted at that amount. Again, hearing from city council people and from the community members about either them getting health insurance or getting this gift for declining the health insurance, I would prefer, and while I don't want anyone to go without health insurance, there's yet another example from a community member that I've had in mind that there's other ways to get health insurance through the state. So I'm saying I hope we look again at changing the salary back to what it was if necessary, if the commission was in favor of that, based on especially those two things, President Bakay and also the optics of being fiscally sound. I also would not want anyone to, if there's no need for health insurance, then there's no need for health insurance, and that's that. But it shouldn't be, I don't know that we should offer it. We had talked about city council members going to whoever their employer had for insurance as a primary coverage, and then if they exhausted that, come to another health insurance through city council or the city's insurance. It seems it's not necessary. If they have health insurance, they have health insurance. If they need backup, they could probably afford it through, perhaps, afford it some other way. So the salary, the health insurance, those are two things that are standing out right now. I'd like us to consider the engineer role and the treasurer role, as these are, well, the treasurer especially being, we need someone to continue to maintain some fiscal responsibility. That's it.
Ms. Rufo?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify from my perspective, the treasurer is the tax collector and the controller is the checks and balance on fiscal spending and budgetary issues. And so I'm still comfortable with removing the treasurer elected position and the increase in responsibilities for the elected controller. And I would also just say that in our meeting where we made a lot of the final decisions on 3 critical articles, I don't remember the date, was it August 1st? It was a very long meeting. We made some pretty big decisions about council in that meeting and didn't, so I think it's appropriate for us to be reconsidering some of those decisions we made.
Mr. Dasher?
Is it appropriate to make motions right now?
No.
No, okay.
Move that just in a minute.
All right.
More discussion.
Yeah, so I will agree with Ms. Cook that the pay increase, I can understand why we would not increase pay, and I'm amenable to a change in that. But as Mr. Gouveia pointed out, I think especially when I think about the people who may consider running for council, gig workers especially, I worry about their potential to afford living. I mean, I actively drive for Uber right now, and I can tell you that it's not a sustainable living. And you know, I will say from years of experience on the road, an Uber driver, for example, could bring an interesting perspective to the transportation infrastructure of the city. So I do think our compromise for the benefits is reasonable, but I'm amenable to changes with the pay.
I was just going to suggest that perhaps we leave it to council on some of these matters like it is currently in the third class city code. And as council, if they're going to give themselves a certain amount of money, give themselves certain pay benefits, it's all in an ordinance with public oversight and input. And I would imagine that the public would come out if they did not like what the council was going to pay themselves or give themselves benefits for. And then perhaps we just remove the pay amount from the charter. We don't set an amount, and we direct council to make those decisions by ordinance.
Any further discussion on results of the public hearing? Mr. Dash?
Yeah. So I understand concerns about increased costs with the charter. And I'm not opposed to the creation of an ethics commission. And in fact, I was the one who said if we're going to create an ethics commission, it should be funded, because we shouldn't just have this entity that doesn't have the resources to do the work that's needed. But there's part of me that feels some interesting feelings about how much commentary there has been about council. And I think it's because those are hard costs that we can calculate. Like, that's a number that currently exists in the draft. But there is no set amount that the Ethics Commission needs to be funded. So I agree with the value of having an Ethics Commission, but I just find it interesting that there has been no commentary on how that will also increase costs. And furthermore, that is a commission that under third class city code, council could create today by action. So I am interested in what we can do to have discussions about increased costs. But I just wanted to make that note, because we haven't, in fact, I think we're on the record having said we don't see any ethical concerns, but it is something we value, and it's why it's in the charter. And like I said, it's just very complicated feelings about that.
Any other discussion items on the public hearing? Okay, we'll move on to the motions portion of the yes.
Thank you. Now that we're making motions on the report and the charter itself, I'd like to move that we amend the charter.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're one step ahead. We have to make a motion. I'll entertain a motion to approve the charter. From there, you can make motions to amend.
I will move to approve the charter.
Okay, there is a motion to approve the charter as drafted. Is there a second? It's a second by Mr. McGrain. Now, debate. Now, there you go.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we amend the charter before us to revise the number of councilors from 9 at large to 7 at large.
Okay, there's a motion to amend Article 2, Section 1. I think it, Section 2, to change 9 members elected at large to 7. Is there a second?
A second.
There is a second. Debate.
Mr. Chair, if I could have the opportunity to speak on behalf of my motion.
Yes, please.
I'm making this motion to change the charter before us for much the same reason that I did when I was speaking opposed to the change before. I believe that fundamentally, despite all that's been said about the number here, we have to make this decision on the merits and based on what would present the best system of governance for the city as a whole, on into the future. I think that 7 is an appropriate amount of councilors, but more than that, I think that by diluting the power of the council in the process of adding additional members, you are putting the council on an uneven footing against the other core power of the city, the executive function that's held by the mayor. I think that kind of thing is the thing that we need to consider when we are talking about a constitution. the structures of incentives and balance over time about who gets to make what decisions in our elected bodies and how that takes place. Ultimately, I would want to see a council that is empowered to reach a consensus, majority, pass legislation that reflects the will of the voters of the city. I fear that if additional councilors are added, that will not be possible because you will have a need to facilitate a number of additional yeses to your position. And I think people may think that that might be good for policymaking. You have to get more people on board in order potentially to pass a law. And I think ultimately it is good to get more people on board to pass an ordinance, but I also think that ultimately the council needs to be able to act as an independent body of the city. And the efforts that are taken to add members only dilute their power. That's the reason that I've made this motion. It's the reason I opposed the change before. I stand by that position. Thank you.
Mr. Castro.
I do not feel that increasing additional members of council dilutes the power of council, but I will say it does dilute the power of individual council members. However, part of the trade-off is that you also are able to have more councilors to engage with citizens. I understand that there's a perception that because other places don't have larger councils, that doesn't justify having a larger council. But just because everybody's doing the same thing doesn't mean that making a change in the other direction is incorrect. From the beginning, I've advocated for a ratio of councilors, because the number of councilors is something that if we do want to change, we have to have another home rule study commission. I believe the city's planning for growth. And so if we see growth, it will mean that the ratio changes over time from, I think it's 6,200 for 9, it will increase. There were 12 amendments proposed for the Bill of Rights. 10 of them got passed at the time. Those are the 10 amendments we know today. The 11th of them got passed in, I think, 1992, and that's the 27th Amendment. It stayed on the books for centuries. The only one that didn't get passed was the Congressional Apportionment Amendment, which would have set a ratio of House members to constituents around the 30,000. There's some debate because that's part of why the motion had some issue, but the intent, I believe, was to have 30,000 people to every single rep. And now look at the political system on a federal level. We have this lopsided scenario where some states have one rep to every 50,000 people, and then on a large end, one rep to every 1,100,000 people. I would have preferred to set a ratio so that we stay within a bound, so as the city grows or shrinks potentially, it stays within reason there. But I don't support going back to 7. I think 9 is appropriate, especially for future planning.
Additional comments? Hearing none, would somebody like to call the question? I'm not sure you can call the question on your own motion. You don't have to? Okay. So we'll do all votes by roll call. Mr. Harris, will you call?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barber. Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Dastra.
No.
Mr. Feldman.
Yes.
Mr. McGrath.
Yeah.
Ms. Rufo.
Yes.
And Chairman Adams.
Yes. So hearing a vote of 7-1, the motion passes. Section 202 will be changed to, sorry?
6-1.
6-1.
2 people are missing.
Oh, sorry, yes, 6-1. The motion passes. So,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment as well, please.
Yes.
So I'm prepared to introduce an amendment regarding council compensation and benefits. And I have a version of that to share. Basically, current and revised. And, my proposal is in the article regarding city council to revise section A to say that each council member shall receive an annual salary, and then council shall set the salary by ordinance, and to revise section D to say that council members should not be eligible to receive other benefits. And so I'll start with some comments, if I may.
Well, first of all, this is section 213.
Right.
Article 2, section 13.
So I'll make this motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's a second. Now, explain. Yes.
Comments. Okay. I'd like to start with some comments on the benefit portion first. I had an opportunity this week to speak with Director Tina Campbell to make sure I had a clear understanding of how this affects the city budget. And it varies from year to year, but in a typical year, the cost per family participant is about $32,000. While at this time not all council members participate in city's health insurance, I think it's wise to consider the possibility that this will not always be the case, and we should think about this in terms of the maximum exposure, maximum average exposure, as well as the maximum possible exposure. So with this in mind, it's reasonable to believe that with 7 people on council, which we now just approved, annual cost to this annual average cost would be about $224,000 if everybody participated. And then I also wanted to learn a little about the maximum level. The city has what's called a stop loss insurance package, which we've heard about some of this before, where in that over $175,000, other coverage comes into effect and the city no longer pays from their self-funded plan. However, the city is liable everything up to that amount. So again, it's one single member of council could, who would have, understandably an unfortunate health situation, but could cause, $175,000 cost to the city. And, in the unlikely event that more than one, that would just multiply. So, furthermore, I had a chance in my conversation to confirm that in the city, for employees who work fewer than 20 hours a week, no benefits are available. So I don't believe that we believe that council members work more than 20 hours a week into this job most of the year. So with that in mind, that's some background on where I would be coming from with the amendment to eliminate the opportunity for them to be enrolled in benefits. And then, as you'll note, I'm introducing some, and to be fair, this is, the salary portion of it, reminds us of what we heard at our August 1st meeting from Commissioner Barber, where we acknowledge that they shall receive an annual salary, but that they shall set their salary by ordinance. So that's some additional commentary on my motion, and I'll leave it to there.
Mr. Barber.
Thanks for introducing that, John. I think that it does get to the core of some of the citizen concerns we've heard over the last 2 meetings, and provides for ample opportunity for council to establish what is seen as a reasonable cost, a reasonable compensation for the work that they do, and that maintains the flexibility that we're intending for the entire charter, that it creates a system for longevity and allows that to be easily manipulated in the future so that council can respond to whatever kind of current economic conditions, whether a raise or actually a lowering of their compensation might dictate.
Other comment, debate?
Yeah, I am amenable to the first half of the change. The second half, not so much. I do understand that we don't know how many hours a counselor could put into their job. It's plausible that some counselors could be putting in full-time work for part-time pay. And like I said earlier, I think people in different economic situations could benefit, especially in the increasing cost situation of health insurance. I still think that Section D in the current form is appropriate and addresses some of the concern. So I'd actually like to make a motion to amend the motion to only include Part A of the changes.
Trying to decide how the most orderly way to do this. I'm thinking if we could vote on the entire amendment, and then you could make a motion.
Well, I don't see if it's a second.
We can do it that way. And go through and amend the amendment. Is there a second? Hearing none, motion fails. Additional debate on the motion at hand. Okay, no more debate. Mr. Harris, would you poll the commission, please?
Mr. Barber? Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Phil?
Yes.
Mr. McGray?
Yes.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
Chairman Adams?
Yes. Motion passes. Additional debate on the charter.
I would like to make a motion to re-include previous language to require a city engineer.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Would you like to explain?
Yeah, I'll go through it again. I just think that having one person who is always guaranteed to have these credentials is important, and furthermore, it centralizes the responsibilities so that, let's say there are projects that come forward, it means that this person is responsible for understanding the infrastructure of the city. So that's the briefest way I can put it. I think it's a necessity with how many utilities we manage, and I think if the residents are going to vote on the charter, that should be included.
Additional debate?
Can we revisit some of the discussion that we had on this previously for why we excluded this? If I recall, there were some issues around an engineer having a public works background and understanding public works, and also some issues around the residency requirements of city employees.
I also seem to recall, and I don't know if this is accurate, that there was some discussion about when the third-class city code was created, the concept of public works and engineering wasn't professionalized, and so it was put into the code to ensure that cities complied with best practices at the time, and now in this day and age, engineering and public works are well established in cities of our size. I think that's where the conversation was around. I do not recall us removing it because for cost issues. It was more this discussion about public works in cities these sizes being professionalized and being known as something we needed, whereas when the third-class city code was, created, it was not.
Mr. Chair, PEL, you have control of the drop-down screen, is that correct? Would you be willing to display the language? I'm sure it'll take you a minute to find, and if you could, I'd appreciate it. Do you have the language on it? Yes, thank you, please. Let's take a look.
Yeah, because I don't believe we specifically excluded the city engineer.
No, it did not. I'm only saying this because I was the person who motioned to remove it, that's all. Mr. Chair.
Okay, in a formal motion, everybody has the opportunity to speak before anyone speaks a second time. Does anybody else have a comment at this time? Okay, Mr. Dasher.
Yeah, as I remember in some of our conversations, it was more about how I understand there are multiple engineers that work within the city, and it was that, these engineers don't exactly work within an engineering bureau. They have responsibilities to different departments. But I do feel that having one engineer who's responsible for signing off on the city plans it's like a final check and balance to ensure our projects are to a proper standard, because there could be differences in opinion along the way. And I think especially in light of us having a consent decree on us for storm and sanitary sewer separation, it is important to have someone at that final check.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but thank you. Could we pull it from the optional charter plan A? If you're, I know you're looking for a pull out from the original.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Right. So I'm just asking for some clarity from our solicitor. Sorry. At this time, are you saying we are not required to have a city engineer?
We are required to have a city currently.
Okay. And what requires us? Why
The third class city code.
Third class city code.
Right. Remember, there are two laws. There's the third class city code, and then there's the third class city code optional charter law. We are both, we have to operate under both because we are an optional charter. But the provisions that you're dealing with are in the third class city code.
Mr. Chair, the section or chapter 115 of the third class city code, section 11501, has a statement relative to the appointment of city engineer. Council shall provide for the manner of appointment and compensation of the city engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick. That's the entire reference? Just that one, the one sentence?
No. It goes on significantly beyond that.
Oh, okay.
I will note that some of the discussion here has been about not being able to use an outside firm. The third class city code of that same provision allows for the city engineer to be an outside firm if council chooses. I think, there's no harm if you want to require council to appoint a city engineer. It's the specification of duties, the putting all the engineering requirements under one person could prove to be challenging under the current structure of the city of Lancaster. And that was the discussion that was had months ago. We have water engineers, sewer engineers, traffic engineers, a multitude of engineers all working in different bureaus. No one engineer is really, they work under the direction of deputy directors and the department head. We do have a designated city engineer for purposes of meeting third-class city code requirements for signing plans, et cetera.
So, appointment of city engineer, council shall provide for the manner of appointment and compensation of the city engineer. Does that reflect what you were talking about, Mr. Daxter?
Could I see the citation at the top of the document? The very top of it might sound, because I'm looking at one third class city code here that has a lot more language in it. It says active March 19, 2014, but I know there's a 2015 update.
Are you looking at the third class city code, chapter 115? I see. Page 63 of 189.
I'm looking at Article 15 in this document. I just did a search, so I don't, because we were...
Would you like for me to read the relevant section of the
Please.
city code?
Please.
Please, Mr. Hammer, could you do that, please?
It's section 11501 in 11 PACS. Council shall provide for the manner of appointment and compensation of the city engineer. The city engineer shall be a registered professional engineer in this Commonwealth and shall serve at the pleasure of council. Nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit council from designating an engineering firm of registered professional engineers from performing the duties and functions of the city engineer. That's the section that I think that you're referring to.
Because there's other sections to that as well, like 11502, 11503, 11504.
Correct. The chapter then goes on to have a number of different sections in it detailing types of duties that the city engineer can have and certain city responsibilities that quite frankly aren't consistent with the city's current structure, including designating the city engineer as being responsible for all engineering services within the city.
Yeah, because the matter I think that is really critical to me is 11502, control of engineering matters. The city engineer shall have the supervision, direction, and control of the engineering matters of the city unless authorized by council. A department of the city may not employ or retain any additional engineers. And that's why I'm saying like the city engineer to make sure that there's a final check and balance on the engineering operations of the city.
Well, we're back to debate or discussion.
Well, I don't think I'm debating
Okay.
right now. So Commissioner Dastra, are you suggesting we, in this amendment, adopt 11501 and 11502 into the draft Home Rule Charter?
I am actually recommending 11501 through 11505, the whole chapter. Just to read the titles, those are appointment of city engineer, control of engineering matters, duties, certifying commencement and completion of municipal improvements, entering upon property for surveys.
Okay, just for my own clarification, so your motion is that we include under other appointed officials, sections 11501 to 505 of the current third-class city code?
Correct.
Okay.
Dr. Adams, if I might add a little light to this conversation, with your forbearance.
Please.
I appreciate that we're having this conversation, and the current structure of the city has a Department of Public Works, and that department is divided into 4 areas. Each has an aspect of engineering that's associated with it. And I would caution the commission in creating a position in which there is only one designated city engineer that is responsible for 4 very disparate units of government, and those responsibilities to be put on that person, because ultimately I feel that that would force us to hire another engineer to basically be the person who is the designated person, the designated engineer to be reviewing stormwater, wastewater, public right-of-way, our other elements that are related to city operations, related to our overhead broadband installation, which also requires engineering. So the type of engineering that we do is both horizontal, under the ground, and vertical, above the ground, and everything that's in between. The way that the Department of Public Works now is created into 4, we have construction and operations, that also has an engineering component. We have public right-of-way. We have utilities, which includes water and wastewater, and then we also have sustainability in the environment, which also includes a stormwater component as well. So the stormwater is divided in between all of the green infrastructure, which has a different engineering component, because the engineering and the kind of engineering that you need for that is very different than a public right-of-way. So I say all of this because I appreciate Ms. Jackson bringing this forward and us having additional dialogue about the importance of engineering in the function of many aspects of city operations. At the same time, calling out this particular position and requiring a city council designation for one person to be responsible for this also calls into question like the many other functions that we must have within city government that are also not called out in the Constitution. And so I just am raising that because I'm not sure that city engineer, in the way that we need to operate now, given, to your point, Commissioner Dastra, long-term control planning related to the consent decree, and the what Councilor Hirsch had mentioned in terms of the number of federal mandates that are going to be related to drinking water as well as wastewater and so on. Those are all things that have to happen, and we have a team of professionals that are doing those things in a way that's very different today, given the current regulatory environment. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I have a
Ms. Ruffo.
question. PEL, going to home rule, if there was a need for a city engineer, council could pass an ordinance to add that, correct? Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, thank you.
As a legal matter, the fact that there is no designated engineer in the city charter does not prohibit the city council, which is responsible for setting forth the city structure of government underneath that constitutional charter, from hiring or designating city engineers. The simple provision of not having it in the charter means there's no mandate that there be somebody titled with as the quote city engineer. That doesn't mean that council won't continue to do so. In fact, your current charter continues to operate under the third-class city code until a new administrative code is adopted. There is currently an engineer in the city who's been designated as the city engineer for performing some of the functions of signing plans and otherwise. So that would in fact be something that would likely be continued long after as part of the new administrative code as it's necessary.
So I just want to provide more commentary because I also work in public works as my day job. You know, back in the day, it used to just be required when you had a traffic signal, you have one light. The reason there's two traffic signals is because redundancy is important when one light goes out. I think it's really critical that we have a city engineer to be the ones, signing off on all the plans. I understand that it can seem like a huge burden, but it doesn't mean they have to do the entirety of the drafting work of engineering plans for the city. It just means that they have to review and sign off on the plans and put their professional seal on it, and I think that accountability is important.
Mr. Barber?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's calling into doubt the importance of engineering function within the city, and it seems as though the city has sufficient engineers that are there, and that us mandating a specific duty and a specific role in that engineering realm could create an undue burden on what the city is required. And that the current function, which operates by ordinance from city council, they'd still maintain that opportunity to do that, so we can still have that, rather than creating what seems to be just a figurehead position that's overseeing lots of different disparate things, of which they might not have the expertise in all of those areas in order to be functioning at their highest way. And so having, as the mayor suggested, having individual departments within public works that have specialization in certain areas, that have engineering that specialize in those specific areas, seems to be a very viable way for us to do that, and without us mandating that a position be created specifically to oversee all of those different things.
Mr. Feldman?
I wanted to ask if Commissioner Dastra would be amenable, because this is a topic that clearly has changed over time since when our operating legislation was put together, and the way that the city functions is different, but I can tell that it is important, to you, and you have some expertise in this space. If you could see a way to suggest, instead of reinstating the exact language from the third-class city code, which I think we're finding to be outmoded and perfunctory, something that would indicate responsibility of the council into the administrative code to deal seriously with this question. They would have the ability to continue to work with the administration to ensure that an appropriate mechanism is put into ordinance.
I'm having trouble with that because, and I have to comment on the word figurehead. It is not a figurehead position. When a professional engineer puts their seal on a plan, they are putting their career on the plan. And I think it is critically important that there is somebody reviewing the plans of the city, especially because I understand the expertise in the field is developed over the decades. There are more engineers today than there were decades ago. But it's important for somebody to understand what is going on engineering-wise in the city so that every city engineer doesn't have to continually refer back to each other like, oh, does this conflict with this utility or that utility? I think it is important that there is a city engineer to sign off on the plans because it is not a figurehead position. It is a matter of accountability and ensuring the utility functions of the city have accountability towards their construction. And again, in light of the need to separate our storm sewer system, I think it is very important that we have a city engineer.
Additional comment before anybody who hasn't spoken?
So, may I say,
Ms. Cook?
Commissioner, before, so again, the city, if I'm not mistaken, the city council has the ability to add that responsibility, okay, and compensation for that person, right? Okay. Thank you.
Still, or Ms. Rufo?
Yeah, I'm just uncomfortable adopting all of this language without further conversation and discussion, so I just think that what Commissioner Feldman proposed is a path forward without closing the door on the conversation.
Yeah,
Mr. McGrath?
yeah, I would echo that. I mean, my interest in this discussion was around a path towards ensuring that we have appropriate engineering talent on staff, because I do understand the importance of that, but, I'm not sure that I agree with the idea of having one singular, engineer to achieve that. I think there are ways that we could accomplish that, including, remaining silent on it and allowing it to be determined by ordinance or in other ways.
Anybody? Mr. Dasher?
If anything, a change that I would be amenable to is within the section 1502 of control of engineering matters, at least permitting the city to hire additional engineers without the authority of council, but I still believe there needs to be one person who's responsible for signing off and reviewing the plans.
I have a suggestion, perhaps, and I'm not making a motion yet. I want to have a conversation. So perhaps the solution is we adopt the appointment of city engineer. Council shall provide for the manner of appointment, compensation, and role of the city engineer, et cetera, et cetera. That's well, I can't read the number, but it's 11501. So it's adding, it's that first sentence that I'm suggesting changing. Council shall provide for the manner.
We can open these screens and I'll read what's up there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dasher, I can't really allow you to speak. We're in the middle of, as a motion.
Okay.
I mean, we can't by our own bylaws until public comment.
I just wanted to ask a question, but if I'm not allowed to do it.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think we should let her speak because we let the mayor speak and Paula Jackson was decades-long city planner.
Okay. You can make a motion to amend the rules to allow her to speak.
I would like to make a motion to amend the rules to allow Paula Jackson to speak.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The floor is yours.
Just a simple question. I understand this section is now in the city constitution charter. The question is, have we been in compliance? Has the city been in compliance with what's required? And if we're not, I would question why not, but it seems this is now a requirement. And what I'm just saying, why eliminate it if it has been a requirement and it hasn't been identified as a problem? That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Ruffo?
Should I make a motion?
I think you were prepared to talk. Oh, you already did that.
Okay.
No, you did your part. I'm sorry.
So you would like to make a motion to amend?
Yeah, because we're in the motion of discussing adding all this language as is, so if you have a.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to amend
Yes.
Tony's. Okay, to add in the language, appointment of city engineer, council shall provide for the manner of appointment, compensation, and role of the city engineer, who shall be a registered professional engineer in this Commonwealth, and shall serve at the pleasure of council. Nothing contained herein shall prohibit council from designating an engineering firm of registered professional engineers from performing the duties and functions of the city engineer.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
I feel like we should include some level of duties and not just, because like the key thing for me is making sure that this individual who's being appointed is reviewing and signing off on the plans at the end. Not that they're doing all the drafting, but that they're putting their seal on the work.
I'm just not comfortable doing that, knowing that this is, I mean, just like we have discussed other specificities in a charter constitution, potentially causing challenges down the road that we can't even anticipate. That's my hesitancy for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's just like all of the other positions that we have, whether they're controller, other areas, we don't have specific job descriptions as detailed as what you're suggesting in this. I think keeping that broad and allowing council to help determine exactly what that role is and how that role is created within the context of the needs that the city has. I think that gives the broadest opportunity for this to be, I mean, again, going back to the purpose of the charter, which is to establish the framework for the future of things and not having us into a specific thing.
On that note, could we actually revisit the language for all the other appointed officials real quick? Not to change it, but I just want to refer to it because we're talking about not having specific requirements, and I'm pretty sure the Administrative Services Director has more robust requirements. Not requirement, duties, I should say.
Mr. Feldman?
The Administrative Services Director is the head of the Administrative Services Department, and the person who is the city engineer may not necessarily be the head of the department. I think it makes sense that they would have more broad and outlined duties.
Other discussion? Hearing none, I will ask Mr. Harris to poll the commission on Ms. Ruffo's motion.
I think we,
Mr. Barber.
it's not quite right.
We'll help you get it. Yes.
Yeah, it's one minor change though.
Appointment, comma,
Roll.
compensation, and role of the city engineer. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harris, please.
Mr. Barber.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Dastra.
I'm voting yes to move forward with this, but I have more to say.
Mr. Feldman.
Yes.
Mr. McGregor.
Yeah.
Ms. Ruffo.
Yes.
Chairman Adams.
Well, I have to say, as what I suspect is the commission's only professional engineer, I will actually be voting no.
So that was amending the motion.
So your motion was amended, so we have now included this language in the charter. We are now back to debating the charter itself, the full charter.
So I'm looking at,
Wait, no, we're not.
No, wait,
We approved Ms. Ruffo's amendment to Tony's motion.
yes, and we just passed it.
We asked her amendment,
Yes.
but not the, we got one more layer to go.
Oh, okay. So, okay. All right, so we're back to that motion. All right.
so I scrambled through my email to pull up one of our previous drafts of the charter from 8/1/24, and the Director of Administrative Services has some level of powers and duties included. And I really think that we should be including for the city engineer, at a minimum, the duty of signing off on all city engineering plans. That's it.
Would you like to make a motion to include that the city engineer would be required to sign off on all?
I will make a motion to further amend the motion to include duties. The city engineer shall sign off and review all city engineering plans.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just have one question. You do not see this particular duty as exclusive to other duties as assigned under the rest of that section that was put together. So for example, you've outlined a specific duty you want to add in. It doesn't mean additional duties could not be added later, right?
Correct. I just want to make sure of one prescribed duty, that is one. They could do more duties if seen fit.
Okay. And PEL, I'm sorry to jump on the spot again, would you do us the favor of displaying where we are in the motion with the request? I don't know if you underline it, highlight it, whatever, just to point out this is what we've got and this is what we've been asked to add through this motion.
Can I get some clarity? If this person is being, this position is being appointed by council, can they be an already a staff member? And so they could already have duties and responsibilities in a job description. They're just being assigned the city engineer position. It's not, we're hiring a whole new person whose only job is to sign this thing, right? Okay, thank you.
And may I also clarify, is there some disadvantage to having the responsibility of this person to sign off on plans?
Mr. McGrath, please.
I mean, I guess and I would actually refer back to some comments earlier from Commissioner Dasher, which is to say that, when somebody fixes their signature, I mean, I'll say this, I'm not an engineer, I don't have, I have sort of basic understanding of some of this kind of stuff, but when they're the person that signs it, they're saying that they understand it and are approving it. And hearing the mayor's description of the complexities of the engineering that is required, it seems to me like the person who should be signing an engineering plan related to stormwater should be a stormwater engineer. The person who should be signing an engineering plan related to a roadway should be a roadway engineer. And if you're asking one person to put their reputation and their credentials on the line for all engineering, we're either asking them to put implicit trust in their staff, which is appropriate, or could be appropriate, but it also exposes them to risk if that's not an area of expertise for them, that they may be signing off on something that they don't fully understand, or it may require us to hire somebody who has expertise in all fields, and that's going to be expensive. So I think that as long as we have the appropriate engineering either on staff or under contract, we would prefer to have somebody who has expertise in that field be the one to sign saying this is an appropriate plan.
I do recognize that engineering has specialties, but I still feel like if the engineering staff in the city can't communicate ideas amongst themselves with the mutual understanding they have as engineers, that's a concern. I can understand the argument about the specialization of certain fields and how that specialty should sign off. I would be willing to, I would be open, I should say, to seeing, to amending my amendment to include that the city engineer may authorize another person within the city's employment to sign off on a plan. Like, actually, you're a professional engineer, so can two engineers sign off on something?
My understanding is there is a lead engineer would be the sole person. Everybody involved, probably not. I mean, you know, not trying to enter into the debate, but I will tell you, I will claim that I think there's a misunderstanding of just what a professional engineer qualifies to do. My profession, registration, licensing is in nuclear engineering.
Jesus.
By law, I could legally be the city engineer and sign off on stormwater drains.
Right.
But that would be not appropriate on my part. If you're going to build a nuclear plant on Queen Street, I'm your man.
Let's do it.
So you're saying you've never seen any plans where there have been two signatures or even just someone's seal and someone's...
Each plan would be signed off by the lead engineer.
And it would have been nice to have that background.
Is that how the current system, I'm sorry. Is that how the current system of the city works? That the...
I'm removing myself now, I have no idea how the current system works.
Answer that question for us. Currently, the specialized engineer in any specific area, they sign off on their own plans. It's just not all consolidated under one person.
I feel like this is a question for the city. Do we need to make a motion to get our question answered?
As by tradition, the mayor has had rights to the floor, so we will retain that.
Different engineers in the city sign off on the plans that are in their purview, and we do communicate among the engineers and use GIS and a bunch of other stuff to make sure that we are planning appropriately, so that if we need to do sewer work, we do that first before we do water infrastructure improvements and before we do paving. This is just best practice. So, and I would also say, as we are discussing having a capital plan that would be introduced and publicly commented on, that it is the city engineers in those respective areas that are putting together those capital plans and then laying out the timeline for design and implementation of those plans. So yes, it is much more specialized, and no two engineers I'm aware of have ever signed off on the same plan.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I was thinking about something you mentioned, Commissioner Dasher, about like, okay, well, could two engineers, could it be a designee? But then I read through this and I said, okay, we're saying the council is going to do an appointment, but then that appointed person can designate someone else. And it feels to me like, what are we doing here? Like, I guess I wanted to see a way to like get this all together, and I can be with 11-501, and I was trying to see if I could be with this one, but the way that it's been put together, in the fact that what we're doing now is questionable whether we're doing what the state law requires. I don't think I can see it working for me.
What if we added an addition that the city engineer by notarized letter may designate another lead engineer to sign off on a plan?
Can I ask?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Continue.
Why do we have the council appoint this person at all, if that's the case?
I I still think that somebody should be understanding of the lingo, and it provides that accountability. I'm understanding now that 2 engineers can't sign up on a plan, and there's arguments of specialization, but I still feel like somebody should be a little bit more centralized to the role of city engineering so that there is conversation amongst even different specialties. So I think this is a valuable position. I understand the complications here, but yeah.
It seems as though you're looking for somebody to quarterback this whole thing, and doesn't the Director of Public Works, although they're not an engineer, they're the ones that are facilitating all of the interactions, and so they are kind of quarterbacking this thing, and then relying on the expertise of their individual engineers in department to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, actually, as we were having this conversation, part of me was going, is there anything prohibiting the Director of Public Works from also being the city engineer? I don't know that we have that prescription, but that, in the same way we've allowed the city controller to appoint someone as, who has the credentials to be a CPA, I think what we're doing is allowing for that same flexibility here. It's just not with the Director of Public Works specifically, and I'm arguing that the Director of Public Works could also be the city engineer, and if they feel like their specialty is not suited to sign a plan, they could make that designation if they are also the city engineer to designate another lead engineer. They just have to get a letter notarized saying so.
So I feel like what you're suggesting is if we kept both of these pieces of language, and in fact, the Director of Public Works was the person appointed as the city engineer, it doesn't really matter if they're an engineer, because they're just the Director of Public Works, and they can sign on any plan. And I feel like that defeats your concern about expertise. Overall, I guess I would just say, the buck stops with the mayor. If they put the street in wrong, that's an issue for the mayor with the voters. If they put the water line in wrong, that's an issue for the mayor. The buck stops. Like, that's the line of accountability. And I think I remember now, like, more of what I felt weird about too was we're creating this other different line of accountability for this other position that is like separate from the normal chain of command within the organization. I'm not sure why we want to do that. I'm glad we're having this discussion because I've been thinking about it a lot. It's just, I feel like I'm moving farther away, not closer. I'm sorry.
I seconded the motion so that we could have this conversation because there was so much more information that needed to be heard. So thank you.
Yeah, I can understand your point that the buck stops with the mayor, but I think that as we draft the charter, we have an obligation to make sure that the mayor has the expertise within the city to make the best decisions, because I wouldn't expect the mayor to always know engineering practices. I mean, we've had engineers as mayor. Art Morris was a city engineer, I believe, at one point. So yeah.
So the motion is the amendment to add the line, the city engineer must review and sign off on all city plans. At that point, is there any other discussion? Mr. Harris, would you poll the commission, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Barber?
No.
Ms. Coe?
No.
Mr. Dastre?
No.
Mr. Feldman?
No.
Mr. McGrath?
No.
Ms. Rufo?
No.
Chairman Adams?
No. Motion fails. So now the motion is to add the language from section 11501 of the third class code to, as amended, what we are seeing in front of us to the charter. Any additional discussion on that? Hearing none, Mr. Harris, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Coe?
Yes.
Mr. Dastre?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yeah.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
Chairman Adams?
And as before, I will vote no. Okay, motion passes. Returning to the motion on the charter.
So I will actually make another motion related to some of Paul Jackson's comments. I've also noticed that inconsistency between the controller and the mayor, and I would like to increase the minimum age to be mayor to 21. I would make the motion to increase the minimum age to be mayor to 21.
So that would be section, Article 3, Section 2, to change. You're saying the mayor who are for mayor and who are at least 21 years of age. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails. Returning to the debate on the charter.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
I know that with changes you made to council earlier this evening, there are some cleanup items that would probably need to be made throughout the charter, particularly in areas such as quorum, transition, where the number was based off of a 9-member council originally. I would ask the commission to consider whether a cleanup motion to allow all those changes that were based on a 9-member council to be converted into being based upon a 7-member council.
I was wondering, actually, so my point, Mr. Hanover, is would that be something we should leave to the very end, or would that be something if and when we pass the charter, would we then make a motion to correct inconsistencies, or should that be done now?
Well, those ones that are created by the motions you've already made this evening,
Okay.
to amend, I would do those currently so as to be clear.
So I made the first motion, and I'll make the motion to ensure that all sections of the charter are consistent with the change to adopt a 7-member at-large council. Is that sufficient, Mr. Solicitor?
Would that be correct?
That's what you need to hear.
Yes, I think that would suffice.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Cook, seconds it. Any discussion? Mr. Harris, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Mr. Ruffo?
Yes.
Chairman Adams?
Yes.
I do have a question, because we have a lot of dates in here for the start of the elected officials. Are those dates consistent? Because I know at one point we were saying like the 2nd of January specifically, and others we were saying the first Monday. We're talking about cleanup language. I just want to make sure there's consistency, because at least in the 8-1 draft I'm looking at, I don't think they're consistent.
Specifically,
Yeah, let me pull the document again. So for the mayor, it would be 303, election and term of office.
begins on January 3rd,
Okay, yours says January.
or January 2nd.
January 2nd.
January 2nd.
And then in the council article, it would be 204. No, I'm sorry. Yeah,
And it
204.
says begins on the first Monday of January
Yeah.
following the municipal election.
So making sure that those dates are the same.
Do we need a motion to,
Yeah, actually, I think you do need a motion. The reason being is you actually debated those two questions separately and came up with different answers in your debates, which is why they're drafted that way.
so, Mr. Dasher has a motion to, which one would you change?
I think I'm preferable to the language for the mayor shall begin on January 2nd, or if a Sunday or holiday, the first business day thereafter. Although I will say, I think current language is first Monday. I really am amenable to either. I just want to make sure they're the same.
So just as a reminder, typically you would have an organizational meeting of council, which is why you held the second Monday, because you need the full body there in order to do it, the old council, the new council. That's why that language is in the third class city code for the second Monday. just as a frame of reference for the discussions that you might have had.
So you're making a motion that the language should be,
Actually, no. I'm gonna stick with the language of the council because holiday can be weird for everybody depending on your religious beliefs and depending on what's designated officially as a holiday. I want to keep it simple, so we'll stick with what's current practice and make it the language for the first Monday of January following the general.
okay, motion has been withdrawn.
Yes.
Returning to the charter.
Well, I make a motion to utilize the language of the term of mayor shall begin on the first Monday of January following the municipal general election and shall be for 4 years under the mayor article.
Okay, there's a motion to amend 3.03 to state that the mayor office shall commence on the first Monday to coincide with the city council. Is there a second?
A second.
There is a second. Discussion. As you said, you've already explained it, so
Yeah, consistency.
any further discussion? Mr. Harris, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Byrd? I'm sorry, Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
Chairman Adams?
This is a tough one. I see them as two different jobs. I will vote yes. Okay. But they're two different jobs. So anyway, but yeah. Returning to the charter. Is there any additional debate on the motion to approve the charter?
I do have a question. Once the charter is approved, what is the opportunity to amend? I guess that's more of a question for Barry. I just want to make sure we're all clear in the room. Right, I just want to make sure we establish what's going on here.
The commission itself would have to hold a meeting, which would be advertised. It would have to make a motion to amend. It would have to be done. And I'm going to check. I'm pretty sure it's at least 60 days prior to the election, but I need to confirm that in the statute if you give me a moment.
Okay.
When you confirm that, could you give us the exact date, please?
Like a time limit.
Somebody's got to pull out a calendar to figure out.
All right, I'll do some math.
I get September 6th.
See, you did math. I just Googled it.
It's Thursday, the 5th of September, 2024.
Which would be about 3 weeks from now.
Right.
Hi, Alexander. How can I help?
Calendar. Are we looking for a calendar? I've got calendars hanging there.
Yeah, section 2922, it's 60 days prior to the general election.
So
60 days, not business days.
Includes the day of the election or ends the day before, it would be either September 5th or September 6th.
So I think it'd be prudent to keep our next meeting on the books then, just in case, but yeah, I don't believe I have any further discussion here.
Okay. Any further debate on the charter? Hearing none? Mr. Harris, would you poll the commission, please?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
Chairman Adams?
Yes. Motion passes. We have approved a charter for the Home Rule Commission.
Mr. Adams. Now I think it would be appropriate for a motion to authorize Pell to make any technical changes, clerical changes that need to be made prior to it being published.
Okay, so is there a motion to allow Pennsylvania Economy League to make, how would you word it? Technical changes?
I motion that we allow PEL to make the technical changes as discussed here tonight and to provide it to the commission prior to releasing to the public.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, capital P, people, we the people. We already discussed that. Drafts went out with lowercase p, capital P, people. Very important to me.
Inalienable, unalienable. All right, I don't think we need to do a roll call on that one. Is there any objection? So ordered. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the report. You all received a copy of the report that was drafted. This report, it will includes both the ballot questions, which we will just approve separately, and will also include the charter itself, the approved charter. Is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
There's a motion by Mr. Feldman. Is there a second? Second. There's a second by Mr. Barber. Any discussion on the report?
I have a clarification.
Ms.
In
Ruffo.
the Public Engagement Committee, the 11 public meetings, does that include the 3 information sessions? Can we add some language to mention the information sessions? Thank you.
And we're going to be technical. There were 4 meetings of the City Council Subcommittee. There were four City Council Subcommittee meetings, not 3.
Further discussion on the report?
Yeah, we should include, now that we've added language for the city engineer, we should include the city engineer under other appointed officials, I believe is this appropriate section.
Do we need a general motion to make the report consistent with any changes?
Yeah, Mr. Adams, I was going to suggest that there be a motion similar to what you made for the charter here as well. Obviously, it needs to be ratified to reflect the changes that you've made in the charter itself this evening. So, again, if you would authorize the report, subject to Pell making technical changes to make it consistent, that would be appropriate.
Okay. So, so the motion,
I will make a motion to authorize Pell to make technical
There you go.
changes
Thank you.
subject to the changes discussed here tonight.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. All right. Any more discussion on the report as amended?
I just wanted to ask a question. Is my understanding correct that this is the report which will be published and available here at City Hall and at other locations for public consumption, and of course online?
This is the final report, includes the report, the citizens, and the charter.
Thank you.
And the ballot questions, those 3 things are in the charter.
Which also goes to the state and,
It goes to the city clerk to certify to the county, and then if this is approved, it goes to the Commonwealth.
okay. Additional discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Harris, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
And Chairman Adams?
Yes. Motion passes. The report has been approved. The third item is the ballot question. Ballot question is actually on, I guess it would be page 2, the cover page, inside of the cover page. This is the question that would be printed on the ballot on November 5th. I think you probably just read it.
And Mr. Adams, if I may, just for the commission's reference, this ballot question is the specific language from the statute, so it's not optional language. You only have a number of choices under the statute. This is the specific language in the law that you're required to adopt.
Okay. Actually, like I said, it's about 3 sentences, so I'm just reading it for the record. Lancaster Home Rule Referendum. Shall the Home Rule Charter contained in the report dated August 15, 2024, the Government Study Commission prepared in accordance with the Home Rule Charter and Optional Plans Law be adopted by the third-class city of Lancaster? A yes vote means that you are voting to adopt the proposed Home Rule Charter for the city of Lancaster, which will change the existing form of government. A no vote means you favor retention of the present form of government. The choices are yes and no. Is there a motion to approve the ballot question?
I have a motion to approve the ballot question as read.
There is a motion to approve the ballot question. Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
The second by Mr. Barber. Any discussion?
There's an editorial change, Mr. Chairman. The retention is a change to keeping. I don't think it is
Oh.
suggestion of the commission.
Uh,
That was optional. The word retention should be.
Oh, okay. So they're actually,
Keeping the present form.
okay, yeah, there was a change on the last line where it says a no vote means you favor. It should have said keeping the present form, keeping the, instead of retention of.
For clarification purposes, the first sentence is the mandated language by the statute. The second sentence, which talks about a yes vote, is the commission has the option to provide a plain language statement, and that is suggested language, that is not mandated language.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion to amend the language as suggested.
Okay, so there is a motion to changing retention of to keeping the present form of government. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. We've amended it to change retention of to keeping. Any further discussion on the ballot question? Hearing none. Mr. Harris, will you poll the commissioners?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
And Chairman Adams?
Yes. Motion passes. Our final motion is a statement, request or requirement that brings all 3 pieces together. Approval of the final report of the commission, including the recommended home rule charter and ballot question for the November 5th, 2024 general election, and directing the city clerk to submit the final report within 5 days to the County of Lancaster Board of Election. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Harris, will you poll the commission?
Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Dastra?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
Yes.
Mr. McGrath?
Yes.
Ms. Rufo?
Yes.
And Chairman Adams?
Yes. Motion passes. We have a charter, and it is on the ballot. Thank you all very much. Now's when you should clap. Okay, next item is the commission is required to do public education on the approved charter. We currently have a public engagement committee. I would like, as chair, I'm disbanding the public education committee, and I would like to form a public engagement, and would like to form a public education committee. Is there any objection to forming a subcommittee to do public education?
Wait, so disbanding the one that Amy chairs?
Yes.
I mean, can it just be all of us?
We can, but then we have a full commission. Then we would have to, it would follow the rules of the commission. Whereas I would prefer a subcommittee to handle it and report back to the commission.
Tony, the way I see it is the subcommittee would be developing the materials, which are pretty much developed, created, identifying a schedule and location where we're going to go do stuff, some other ideas that came out of the public engagement committee about posters and flyers and the mailer and things like that, that the subcommittee would work through that and then inform the commissioners. And then as previously, it's up to the commissioners, all of us, to go out and do the work of educating the public, attending the public, whatever events get created to formal events and also,
Gotcha.
that
I
kind of
understand
thing.
now, thank you. I was a little lost on that one.
Okay. Ms. Cook?
Is it still considered the work of the commission in going out if we all agree to go out to educate the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all go out to educate the community, but I would say, just like we had a public engagement committee throughout the drafting process, we need a committee to develop the materials and tell the commissioners, hey, we're going to be here, here, and here, who's going to be there, who's going to talk, who's going to, it's the same kind of thing. We're
Sounds
just
good.
doing it for educating the public
Wanted to
about the
clarify.
final charter.
Is there any objection to forming a public education committee? Ms. Rufo, would you be willing to chair that committee?
Sure.
Thank you. We would require three people to serve on the committee.
I will volunteer.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed working on that with Amy up to this point. I'm happy to serve on that as well.
Anybody else who would like to volunteer for the committee?
I will also volunteer to serve on that committee.
I was going to say I would too. So,
I'll do what you tell me to do. I don't want to go to your committee meeting.
I'm not sure having 5 people on the committee would be workable.
Amy, perhaps you
can select.
You know that you have kind of the run of everyone here, it seems.
If you would like to select your committee,
John have done such a commendable job on the public engagement committee. I
I
would
would-
trust your
I
judgment.
definitely do want John to join me because we've developed a lot of material together. And really, I do feel that a lot of what we have to determine is logistics rather than content. I think our content is pretty in shape. I mean, we might need to break it down in different ways. But it's not like we're creating something from whole cloth. We've got a pretty baseline. So I'm not really sure how to handle this, but
I would suggest that as the chair, you choose and let me know, and we'll make sure that we have your committee.
okay.
Give
And then we need to
you
schedule time. Then we need
an
to schedule
evening to
dates.
think who you would like. You have full reign of those in attendance this
Okay,
evening.
thanks.
Okay, thank you. Other business?
Yes.
Mr. Feldman?
I just want to take a moment this evening to say, while we're not completely and 100% done with everything that will have to be done with this, I think it's important to note while we're at this pivotal moment to say thank you specifically to the staff at the Pennsylvania Economy League, Lynn Shedlock, Jerry Cross, Fred Reddick, and Patty Moorhead have all spent an enormous amount of time sifting through questions that we have sent them, meeting with us. They have said before that we are spending head and shoulders amount of time and effort on the debates and subject matters and public engagement, and we haven't done that by ourselves. We've almost always done it with all of you, and so thank you for your time and your expertise. You're not public employees, but you are serving the public.
Any other business? I'll make a question to the commission. We currently have August 29th scheduled as a meeting. There is no items for the meeting. Is there any reason to meet on the 29th, or should I cancel the meeting?
I would like to keep it just in case members of the public want to approach us about issues. We don't have to have any agenda items, but for a listening session at that, maybe, at least to have conversation with the public. Because if there is something in those conversations that makes us think, it at least provides one last opportunity.
I don't fundamentally have an objection to this. I'm just trying to figure out like how this should work, because it's basically like, to me, what you're saying is we would hold the meeting, we would have the public comment, and then if we do not have any desire to do anything differently, we will adjourn, and that will be all. It is a meeting. Like, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, what you're suggesting is we have a meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's anything at the last moment that we feel persuaded on from additional public comment, I think that because it's the last meeting we have scheduled to make further changes, I think we should keep the meeting.
I don't have a problem with keeping the meeting.
I would say that we have a website, we have contact information. Anybody who wants to contact us can and has. And thank you to all who have made many comments on the website. I will hold the meeting if the commission would like to hold the meeting. I personally don't see the need to do it. What is the consensus of the rest?
I'm for having it.
Ms. Cook?
I don't see the need for one. If we made the motion that PEI would make the technical changes, and before they would be released to the public, we would have a chance to see them. So I don't know that we would be changing anything else that would need a meeting for that.
Might be a good chance to review those technical changes just for any final errors, though.
But I feel like if they are going to send them to us for basic approval, that those changes would be made before they're released. Chairman?
I would say, yeah, I would agree with Ms. Cook. I don't see that we need a meeting. I think we could proceed to not hold the meeting, but if a need arose, if something, you know, we could always add it again if a need arose. If something in the work of PEL and the solicitor brought something to light that required a meeting and another vote, you know, that could be
The
organized.
meeting's already been posted. Is that, I'm assuming, I don't know if I said Mr. Harris or Mr. Hamwood. The meeting is, so if we cancel the meeting for the 29th, we could reinstate it because it's already
No, we definitely have.
re-advertised.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Okay.
If the commission wants to hold another meeting, on whatever day, we can always schedule that meeting.
Okay.
Can someone tell me how long we have, how many days prior to the meeting actually being held, could we say that it's canceled? If it's canceled?
You can say it's canceled up until the minute of the meeting. There's no time in advance you have to notify of that.
Okay.
It would be cheaper to just keep the meeting in place and literally cancel it or just fail to have a quorum. I will be here if there's a meeting date.
I'm fine with keeping it. I'll be here too. I know there are commissioners that won't, but it doesn't
I'll take a show of hands. How many would feel we should meet on the 29th? How many?
Should we cancel or keep?
Should we cancel or keep the meeting on the 29th?
Keep the meeting.
Keep the meeting.
I'd be fine keeping it.
I think it should.
How many say we should not meet?
I-
I have no idea. I didn't catch.
I'm fine if we need to keep the meetings. I mean,
Yeah, if we need to.
At this point, it's probably more in the interest of public engagement to keep the meeting.
All right, so we will meet on the 29th.
Brian, I mean, it could be a very brief meeting.
I hope so. Okay. Any other business for the commission? Public comments? Would anybody like to speak?
I would like to speak. My name is Gibson Theobald. I live on Prospect Street. I think over the last two sessions, we've heard a lot about the concerns from the people that have come here, concerns regarding rising taxes coupled with issues like people, specifically senior citizens living on fixed incomes and currently receiving disability. They've had concerns about what their housing status is going to be if this charter passes. I strongly believe taxation is not the way to bring the city back into prosperity. You have people that are struggling just to get by, and it's every day. We have a growing homeless population, and we have special interest groups coming to buy up the property from people that can no longer own property to rent because of rising costs. Someone mentioned at the last session that cities that have adopted the home rule have since reverted from them. I think that right now we should probably look at circling back and take further into consideration these ideas that we're pressing into, that Lancaster City is not ready for a new form of government yet. I would like to thank you all for your time and becoming part of this commission and spending the last couple months of looking into these ideas. I just don't think it's the right time. I do like the idea of adding referendums to the city for the residents to vote on. I think with taking that into account, we should also be looking at still ways of limiting that and checking and balancing that out for the special interest groups and the people that do have the time to come out, people that don't work 9-to-5 jobs like everyone else is working. So that's my public comment for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public?
My name is Henry Tober. I live on College Avenue. I submitted some questions earlier today through the website. I probably didn't get to read most of them. There were 37 of them. And I didn't realize that you were going to be passing the amendment for accepting the the charter today. So a lot of what I wanted to ask or so on seems to be irrelevant at the point. I did have one thing just to point out with regards to a technical amendment with the charter, and that was with regards to section 1313 for the transition committee. Nope, I'm sorry. 1312, where it makes reference to a section that isn't actually listed in there. It's filled in with X's, which I believe would have been then section 809. That if that's still in there, you might want to fix it. 1312, a little lower. Yeah, you just, yeah. Oh, you do have the 809 in there, good now, because I had downloaded the charter from last week and it had X's in there. I did still want to make, at least publicly ask, since that is what the reasons for wanting to have the revenue limitations waived during the first 2 years from the effectiveness of the charter. I mean, you already are going through 809 saying that there is an upper limit of 6% for the overall tax uppage. And I'm just concerned just how much higher over the 6 the committee might decide to go in the next 2 years. Some of us not only own homes, but we're also going to be hit by the earned income tax, depending on how you guys do it. So some of us aren't retired, aren't too low in income, that we're going to be hit, it feels like double on that. So I'm just concerned that if you go even higher than the 6, how much harder that's going to be for some people. Also, I had a thought today with regards to if the charter is voted by the electors to be accepted. And we would hope that the potential for the charter would be met. But we're looking at, for example, Camden, New Jersey in 2002 entered a state takeover agreement due to severe financial and administrative issues. In 2011, the state of Michigan passed a law allowing the state to approve emergency managers with power to override local government, effectively suspending home rule for financially distressed cities. If we look at the other cities that in Pennsylvania have adopted state rule, one of them, Reading, which adopted it in 1996, the median household in Reading is lower than the national average, and the city continues to face economic challenges. Reading has a higher criminal rate compared to the state average. Reading is only safer than 14% of cities in the U.S., with violent crime rates significantly above the national average. And so I have to ask, again, assuming that the charter is passed, has there been any thought at all given to what Lancaster will do if the electors of the city feel that the home rule charter is failing them? And if we start getting into worse financial issues or criminal rates, would we have the option of going back to the third class city? So I'm just concerned about that. Again, if we pass it, I'd like to see it succeed. But if not, what does the city have as options if it fails? Thank you. And I do thank you for your time and efforts working towards this.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I actually engage with that a little bit?
We have frequently asked questions on the website that some of the, I did read your email, some of your questions are answered through our frequently asked questions on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Is there a motion to, okay.
Matt Kroll, East Vine Street. I have a lot of comments, but I'll save the technical ones where we're at. One point, having an age of 21, it's better than 18. But if you look at every study, a brain is proven not to be ready for maturity until 25. My insurance company won't allow anyone under 25 to drive a 12-passenger van, and a mayor is quite a different end of the spectrum. I would greatly consider looking at that technicality. My other comment is, and again, I appreciate all of you serving. I served on the Crime Commission. I know the hours that you put in. You don't get a paycheck and you don't get benefits, but you got applause tonight. And but that's because you're not doing it for that. You're doing it because you're concerned. Which brings me back to the beginning of tonight's session. Council is important, whether in the city or in a Marietta or wherever you're at. Service is sacrifice. And when you're talking about part-time, not that you don't deserve an income for that, but when the city is at a dire time financially, economically, it makes absolutely no sense to even entertain a raise when we're where we're at. Number two, benefits. service at that level, it's not full-time. It's not a mandate. I serve in many capacities and give hours of my time, and there are no even talk of benefits, and there's just a token of appreciation. But we do these things because as people with conscience, we do it from that aspect. So technically benefits are wonderful, but in this capacity, it becomes an employment and not a service. And I would highly just give my opinion on benefits are not needed at that capacity. As far as home rule, I'm going to take you up on your offer to have lunch. Because I've been digging in and researching, my concern is anytime you have caps off taxation, you always have the potential of failure. There are many municipalities I've looked into in other states in Illinois where home rule has not worked out at all. Insanity is doing the same thing over again. And I hope this time in Lancaster, and I love what you're doing, but we have to be very careful that we're not doing the same thing as others. If home rule is going to work, it has to be done different than others. I'm not convinced it is. That's why I'm having lunch with you. But they're my public comments, and I do appreciate the time that all of you have put in sacrificially, and I thank you for that very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from the public? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
So let's do coffee.
My only request is that you don't make your decision off home rule just on what I tell you.
Oh, wait,
to read the greater body.
No, I have been.
Good.
I quit.